New product demonstration. One of the new features that we've been asked to build by not just one customer, quite a few people, is a way of storing all their documents and policies and procedures. We can probably use it internally ourselves as well for storing our processes and procedures. But what we've built is a document repository or a policy manager. Create revisions of documents and have a sign-off process, set expiry dates. Review dates. Make people attest to a document so you can send it to all of the staff and say make sure you've read and signed and agreed that you've understood this document. You can do all of that in it. But I'll show you all how it works and you can ask questions as we go along. The feature is turned. It's turned off by default, but you can turn it on each customer just in the Edit Customer screen. There's an option there to toggle it on and off. It's not live yet. This is only on my machine and I think I'm testing, but it should be going on production. If I click into it, it then takes you to a list of the repositories for that customer. You can create more than one repository for each customer. It doesn't have to be more than one. Some customers will want one repository because you can create folders within it. Some customers may want to split the documents into different repositories and give different access to different people. It's all flexible and however the customer wants to set it up. But on my screen I've just set up one for now to show you one of the things that the customer will probably want to do first is when I spoke to Ethypharm, they explained for each of the document that they have in their company, they have to go through a 3-step process to sign a document off. The author has to sign it off, then a process worker. Then it has to go through a quality check and they explained that each step can't be completed until the previous one is done. So the author has to do it first and the process workers will then get an email when that person's approved it, and then the quality check will then get an email to when they've approved. When the process workers approved it. So the first step is to set up the workflow so you can set up a template and I'll create a new one. You can call it whatever you want, that the name is not relevant. It's just a memorable name. So for this one I'll just call it workflow. It doesn't really matter and then it's what you want to call each step. So for this one I'm going to just call it author. Then add a step and call it process owner and then add another step and call it quality check. So I've got 3 steps in there. You can say whether the step is required and whether the person in that step can reject that step, and if it gets rejected, that means that process is then stopped at that point and it can't go any further. But I'll leave them all ticked for now, and then I'll create that template and you'll see that I've got 3 steps. In each of them too. But that was not attached to any repository yet. But if I now create a new repository and I'll just give that any random name. For now I can specify that workflow and say that every document is in. It is required. If that is not ticked, it's optional. But if I tick that box, it means every document in there must follow the sign-off process that has been assigned in that workflow. So when I create that, it will add a second repository there. I won't go into that one because it's empty. I'll show you the one that I've already set up. We've got full capabilities to set up permissions. To say who can view, edit, delete and manage the other permissions. We can also create user groups now and give the user groups them permissions so you don't have to do it on individual people. You can create a group and then put them people in that group and they'll automatically inherit them permissions based on that group. Rather than able to do it individually. So for this demo I don't need to mess with them permissions, but just to show you that there's a couple of other things you can do. Like when you edit the repository you can rename what some of the tabs are called. There's one called attestations which is the bit of getting people to say, I've read and approved a document again. The wording some people don't like it, so you maybe want to call that, like proof, but each of the sections can be renamed. They've also got some sensible defaults and you can change the icons that are with them if you want to, but I'll save that and I'll show you where that comes up later on. I close that and go into the repository itself. What you get is a list of all the documents that have already been uploaded and a list of folders down the left-hand side. The list of folders you can just add a new one by clicking this icon up here and I'll ask you to enter a name and a description and it'll add a new folder down the left. You can add subfolders so you can go in here and you can click against. There you can add subfolders to folders so you can go any level deep on your tree of documents and how you store them. But you'll see on the root level I've got 7 documents at the minute, and each of these folders it will show you the number of documents I've got in each folder. You have got things like manage permissions on them, individual folders. So you could say some staff have access to some folders and some don't have access to certain folders, or totally possible the documents that you can use in this document repository. There's 2 types, as either a file that you've just uploaded like a PDF, or it can be a document that you've actually created in line in the actual document repository system itself. So you can tell the difference currently by the color of the icon. So a blue one is an uploaded file and a green one that is created in line. I'll show you the difference in a second and it will make sense. Like most interfaces, you've got some basic filters, so you can sort by name, creation date, the different types, the expiry date, etc. You can also filter by the different statuses. All these are currently set as draft, as you can see on here, but if they were ones that were approved or archived, you can just filter them out. You've got a couple of other options here. Like if a document is deleted, it will go to a recycle bin, which you can then restore, and that recycle bin will get emptied after 30 days. So if it's left in the recycle bin after 30 days, it will get deleted. Now let's go to add a new document. So I'm just going to add a new document. It's going to ask which type it is. At the minute, to create a document in line in the actual editor itself, you can only do like a Word type document. You can't like do an Excel or a PowerPoint or anything. So what you would normally do there is do it offline, create your file, and then as it has an upload document, and that's quite simple, you say upload document. You give it a name, so you know it could be like staff process or whatever the name is of the file. You can give it a description. You browse to the file, select the file on here that you can give it a review. So I'll show you how that works. But we've got a full dashboard to show you when documents review when they're. For expiry, you can set a custom version number, but if you don't, it will just go from 1 o'clock to 1 o'clock to 1.2 to 1.3, etc. You can leave that as is. I'll just leave them as default for now. If I say upload that document, it should create that document, and whatever I called IT staff process, I spell it on there, you'll see it's appended upon second ago. I can now go in and say view that document, and it'll take me to a screen where it's got all them tabs in them settings I showed you before, so I can see like the metadata of it. So all the information about when it was created, what its file type is, what size it is, etc. And you can see things like revision. So there's only been one revision at the minute, which is the current one. You can see proof, so I can get people to attest to it. I'll show you how that works. The audit trail shows you who's viewed the document. You get sometimes additional data to say what browser used their IP address and etc. That all works. And then the sign-off process. So if we wanted to go through the sign-off process right now, we could do that, but I'm going to show you a couple of other things first. So the content, if a person just wants to view the document, you would just download and it'll download in your browser as normal. And if we wanted to edit the document, what you would do is then you can obviously edit the settings that are here, and you would browse and you'd edited the document offline. You'd select the new version of the document, and then when you save it, it will say do you want to update the current version or create a new one. If you see you want to create a new one, I'll ask you what's been changed as a change log, and you can add a custom version number if you want. You might want to call it 1.something alpha or beta or whatever, but if you don't, it will just follow the 1.11.21.3 schema, and then you save that change, and then you'll see a look in this revisions tab. I've now got 2. You can still download the original file, but you've now got an updated one here. And every time you edit the document, if you create a new version, then revisions will just get longer and longer in that list. And then now if I wanted to sign off that process, I could say start that workflow, and it knows the 3 steps that were in that workflow template we created, and it's saying who do you want them 3 people to be. Now on my machine I've created 3 test users, so I can show you how that works. So if I go through them 3 test users and say start workflow, that's going to say the workflow is being started, and it's now asking the author to sign this off. I can resend the email how one, but bear me a second. I should get an email now. If I click to refresh it. So if I bring this up, I'm open it on this screen. So an email saying that there's a workflow step assignment, it's been assigned to you and it's going to show you some instructions of what you need to do, and they need to review and approve the document. So they'll click this link. They don't have to be a user of the system. So this URL they've gone to is completely public and it's got a token in there that only the person who's got email can view. So it means that you could send this step to anyone in the world who's not necessarily a member of Capture because they may not have permission to see the document in Capture, but you want them to still approve and sign it off so they can see all the header information about his title and they can then download the file here, and then what you're asking them to do is when they've read it is sign it, add any comments, and then prove or reject it. So I approve that now. That will say, look, you approved it. I close that. If I come back here and just refresh that screen and go back to it, look, it'll show that that step has been done. I can see their signature here. Then what should happen is the next person in the chain has now been emailed, and if you bear me a second, I should now get the next email as the process owner, so you can see your step process owner step 2, and it's practically the same thing, but for the process owner, they download the file, sign it off, add their comments and approve, and then when they've done their part, however, and looks at this screen, if I click the refresh rather than refreshing the task, when you'll see they've signed their bit off, and then again steps 3. Obviously each customer could have a 10-step process or just a 1-step process. It's however that each customer wants their sign-off process to be, but in this example I've set up a 3-step process, so I'm just going to wait for that last email come through. There we go. So I've got the last email, which is the quality check. Again, obviously I've set the 3 test users to come to me. In reality, these would be 3 different people to sign off this process. So this person will be signing it off. Same scenario, they sign it as comments. You don't have to have the comments, then optional approve it, and that's approved. So now if I click refresh in here, you can see the comments if they were added. Any comments here, and you can see the digital signature, and that status of that document has now been changed to approved because it's gone through the chain of sign-off. Now it's being signed off. You can now do things like proof, and you can say, right, well, I want Aaron to attest to it, even though I'm the person doing it. So if I save that proof and go to the proof tab, it will be set as pending. So what he's basically doing is I'm asking all of the piece of people to say that they've read and understood the document. It might be a password policy to make sure that your password has got at least 8. Which isn't a 1 capital letter or something like that. Or I know Ethypharm. They showed me a smoking and vaping to the company. So you're not allowed to smoke in certain areas or whatever. You know, every company will have them kind of processes. So if I now go back in again and just refresh to get the new email. There we go. So I've now got this one, which is asked to attest. So this is very similar screen, but it's saying, look, you've been asked to attest to the document. Here's the file. Again, it's asking for digital signature, and I confirm that I've reviewed and understood the document. I can add any notes. Submit that, and then if I come back in here and click the refresh button, it'll show that that person has completed the attestation as has been called or proof. And then so now you could email that to everyone in the company and make sure everyone is assigned and understood that particular document. And that's pretty much it. So the audit trail will show you all of the things that I've gone up. So the fact that I attested to it, my IP address, if I added any notes, how the method I used to attest to it through a token link, what version I attested to. It's got all the data there, and come back out of there, and I can see that document is now approved here. Download the staff process is approved, and you can do that with every document in the system. The other type of document is the create document in line. Would you rather than uploading a file, you're creating it a little bit like a Microsoft Word document. You've got, so I can just go in and I think I've got chat DBT open and just copy the document in here. Password policy, and you can just write in it like you do Microsoft Word and then give it colors and all the usual. You can add tables and, you say I want a table and I want it to be this many columns. It'll add it all in, and you had it in this document, actually in the system itself.